Allie Horner. Welcome to the School of Self-Mastery Summer Fridays series. I appreciate you because just like Amy Kanata, we are recording for the second time because of some tech challenges. So thank you so much for being here. I know that round two is going to be even better.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Adrienne.
So everyone may not be familiar with your work, but tell them a little bit about like how you would describe what you do and who you do it for.
So I am a business and productivity coach for the burned out or burning out entrepreneur. So like the woman who, she's got the clients, she's got the cash, like she probably has a little bit of clout too, and she's been around for a while, but she's waking up and going, what's going on here? I'm not happy. That's the woman that I really thrive on helping.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, they're successful in their business, right? Like, maybe like externally, they're doing okay, right? They're getting by, they're not struggling, but they are maybe struggling internally, is what I'm hearing you say. Like, it's not all that it was cracked up to be, or maybe I've even heard people like talk about they've created this own prison cell of a business for themselves. So is that kind of where your person is at?
Yeah, it's almost like, and I just wrote a blog post on this, it's so funny. It's almost like they're in their own golden handcuffs, right? Like they're making enough money to the point where they're like, well, I have to keep my business this way, but they don't have any of the elegance or the ease or the adventure or the time or location freedom that they started their business to have, right? And they're finding out that, you know, they may be externally successful, and they're likely like very high achievers like us, but they've woken up and gone, oh my God, like I realized I went straight down the same path. I had the same schedules I did in the corporate world. I'm taking less vacations. So they're really looking for more of that ease and a little bit more adventure. Like they want that freedom that they originally set out to create for themselves.
Yeah, and your business is called Adventure Knocks. So tell me a little bit about where that knocking of adventure came for you. Like, when did adventure come knocking on your door and pull you away from the corporate world?
Oh my gosh. So I've always craved adventure. Like I was like the tomboy on the block. There were only boys living on my block. I was the first of all the kids. I like idolized my dad, and he's a very adventurous person. So like, I was like obsessed with Indiana Jones. Like my dad used to call me Indiana Jane sometimes when I was growing up. So, and I was like the kid climbing trees. So like, this was like,
we're like the same child.
Yes. And yeah. And that's like so funny. So funny who you gravitate towards, right?
Yeah.
But, so circling back all the way up to the corporate world, I really found that like, I kept changing jobs, you know, like every couple of years I would change jobs. I worked in agency thinking this will be more exciting. I worked in corporate marketing thinking, because it was all marketing the whole time, marketing PR. And it just wasn't fulfilling. Like it would be exciting for a little while to like try working on a new product or a new brand and get to go through the whole campaign launch and stuff. But then I would find myself going, I'm burning out and I'm working myself to death and I'm not enjoying it. Like I don't enjoy it. I always enjoyed all of my coworkers, and luckily I had very good mentors in the corporate world as well. But I really found that I was like burning out fast, and that all culminated when, after I had my son, he was about a year old, I was working in the ski industry, which they're great people who work in the ski industry. And I ended up working like 70, 80 hours a week consistently. Had this little baby at home. I was still breastfeeding. I wasn't getting enough sleep. And I ended up fainting and smacking my head on the wall. And I had to go to the ER. And I was laying in the ER still wanting my cell phone to check my email with a neck brace on. And I was like, what is wrong with this picture, right? Yeah. So that's where I started to say, like, I was laying there for like 4 hours because I was like by myself. You know, my husband's trying to get the baby and figure out who can come over and hang out with me and stuff. So I was just sitting there, and I started to really think like, this is not a life that I want to create for myself or for my son. Like I want him to not feel like he has to work himself to death. And I think there's a lot of messages in society, like the concept of retirement, like do the work now and then you can have time off later. You know, the concept of you get 2 weeks of paid vacation every year and that's it. Like, you know, so we get a lot of these messages in society, and I realized I had totally fallen into this lifestyle that wasn't me, you know? And so I ended up leaving the job and got myself back on track, started taking care of myself, and then started my business. And I really, when I was naming my business, I was like, this is the adventure of a lifetime. Like, who knows where this will go over the next 50 years, you know? But I knew, like, as soon as I started it, I wasn't going back.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to think about what we really want. And obviously you had to have that like literal knockdown moment, and then you're reaching for your phone again. And I know that all of us who, as entrepreneurs, can probably relate to that feeling, whether it was in a previous job or whether it's in our business now where we're doing that, right? Like, you know, feeling like it's never enough, or I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not working. But that probably wasn't what we originally wanted if we really sit back and think about it. So, you know, I know that you had to have that breakdown moment for you to kind of let adventure knock on your door, and you're creating the adventure of a lifetime through entrepreneurship. So I'm curious now, like, how is your work life different now that you're an entrepreneur? Because I know that I worked a lot when I was in corporate, but I work probably more now. And I know that like I'm your probably ideal client for what you do, because work is like my default, right? Like it's something that I just naturally am drawn to. I work more because I love what I do, and I just feel like more excited to work on my business than I did when I was in corporate. And so I'm just curious, like, how did your business kind of evolve when you kind of made that decision that you weren't going to let it get to where it was in corporate?
Well, when I started my business, the one promise I made to myself was, and this might seem like kind of funny, but in the corporate world, my brain, I just knew that my brain always shut off. And even when I was in elementary school, high school, everything, like my brain was done by like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Because I'm a morning person. I get up early. When I was a kid, I got up early. When I was a teenager, I got up early. When I was in college, I got up early. Even when I've been drinking all night, like I was just the early person. So my brain was always done by like 1 or 2 o'clock. And so when I started my business, it was just as much for the fact that I wanted to spend the afternoons with my son, and also for myself, that I knew I needed that space, that I promised myself that I wouldn't work past 1 o'clock. And so in the very beginning, I only worked from 5 to 8 in the morning. And then like the first like couple months before I had a nanny and stuff, so my husband would go to work. And then I would work on the weekends and do client calls on the weekends, which worked out really well since a lot of my early clients were in the 9 to 5 still. So I found that like, you know, creating my own schedule was like my first big piece of freedom, you know? And it's one of those simple things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs like don't make that choice. Like, I mean, even like you were saying, you work more hours, like but that's how you like it to be, right? Like that's what you enjoy doing. So like there are people that's not what they enjoy. They just default into working too much all over again. And I find a lot of the time that in speaking with them, it's because there's something else that they really want that they're trying to create, and they think more work or more doing is going to create it. And there's probably also, for the woman who's working too much, like, even though she's not passionate about what she's doing, right? Like you're very passionate and very happy with what you're doing. So I think that's different. Yeah. But a lot of the people that I've really been speaking to over time, like have found that they have lost sight of what they're passionate about. So like there's other areas of their lives that they're kind of almost avoiding, like they're almost afraid to go there, because that's when stuff will get really good, is when they start to fulfill those other needs too.
Mm. Yeah, so I think it's interesting that like for you, you know, you have this like done by one philosophy that you do business by, and that's not going to work for everyone, right? But I think the most important takeaway from that for me is that you decided what you wanted. Like you decided that that was important to you, and you almost kind of started the business as a side hustle from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., you know, before the nanny. And then even thereafter saying, hey, I really want to spend the afternoon, you know, with my son, but also I know that I'm not really that productive anyways after 1 p.m. And that's like what a lot of us hated about the corporate structure, right? Was I hate sitting in a chair when I'm not being productive. I hate just having to be here just to like, save face in the office, right? If there's nothing to do, or if I'm just not being productive right now, I'd rather go for like a midday workout and then go work again later in the evening. And as an entrepreneur, you do have that flexibility, but I find that people don't take advantage of it, and they end up just like sitting in front of the computer and pretending that they're working all day long again, right? Or they're just taking way longer to do things than they need to because now they have the time available, or like you said, they think by just putting in more hours, it's going to magically get them the results that they want, which is just not true. And so I think the most important piece is about making that decision, but that's so hard. Like, Allie, how do you help people like make the decision around what their boundaries are going to be? Like, is there certain factors that go into helping them figure out what it is for them? And is it as simple as just saying like, this is what I want, now I'm going to do it?
Yeah, well, I think so. Yes and no. Like, it can be that simple. I think a lot of times we like overcomplicate a lot of this stuff, but like, for me, because I did have this experience, I had like a hard stop, right? Like, I had like a huge wake up call, but a lot of the women I see, they don't really have that wake up call really front and center from a physical burnout standpoint, right? Like, but they will come to me because the passion is gone, or they're finding that, their relationships are starting to suck. Like, they're just, and I've even had women like come and talk to me about, how do you do it with kids? Because I really, really want to have kids, but I've been putting it off for the last 5 years. Like, they're literally like stopping like a huge need that they have, which is to be a parent or to nurture or whatever it is, because they think they can't step away or whatever it is. And so this all goes back to, each person's different, but it all goes back to like deep, deep beliefs about what's required for work, what's required to make money, what's required for success, how the world is going to see you, what people are going to think of you if you don't work this much. I mean, I still have moments where I'm like, I talk about being done by 1, someone's going to call me lazy. And people have called me lazy. Like, people have said stuff like that to me before. And I'm just like, I'm the opposite of lazy, actually. Like, right. That's your shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I kind of call them up on like, that's your hang up. That's that you're projecting, right? And so I find that a lot of people, it's unique to the person, but it's usually some sort of belief or root thing that they have, something they learned growing up, something that they decided to believe in a long time ago. And so often it can surface as like anxiety, or a lot of the women that I've been speaking with, like, especially really recently, are controllers. Like, I used to be a major controller. Like,
I am a major controller.
Yeah, and that's like where anxiety disorder comes from, trying to control everything and control what's going to happen, right? And so that's where people get into the busy work and the wheel spinning, and I'm going to sit in front of my computer and make it look like I'm working. It makes me feel better to think that I'm working, even though I'm not getting better results. And some people may actually be getting a lot of results. And that can actually be a little more dangerous, because then they're afraid to pull back because they think, I have to keep working this much, or I'm not going to go farther than this, right? And so it can be a lot of different things for each person. But it usually starts like, with something that they've decided to believe. So if you think about it that way, it really is as simple as saying, I decide not to believe that anymore. I decide to believe that I can be done by 1 and still make a difference. I decide to believe that this will happen when I want it to, no matter how much time I give myself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big fan of, with my schedule, it's kind of Parkinson's law. So I don't give myself all day, because then I will take all day. Like, I give myself till 1 p.m. because then I'm super focused, and then I'm done by like a lot of times by noon, which is really nice, because then I get an hour that the nanny's still here, then I get to go check out for a little bit and go for another walk, and then I get to go home and be with Ben, So,
And I think for a lot of people, it's so hard to make that decision because they do have these beliefs, right? And self included. I think we all have like some form of this for sure, around, because that's also the culture, like our like societal culture is pushing this, like, oh, if you work more, you will get better results type of thing, or you have to work all these hours to be successful, or you have to be a hustler and work, 24/7 if you want to make it type of thing. And we don't really value vacation. We don't really value time off, and the thoughts and beliefs that we have around what it means to take time off or what it means to not work as much are not good, right? These are not like good beliefs that we have generally. And I think that there is something shifting. Like, I think that there's something shifting in terms of retirement being the end goal. And like I see the millennial culture, the millennial generation valuing more time off, valuing more the freedom that they want to create, and valuing less, tons of money or material things, right? So I do see that shift a little bit, but it's still really challenging, and self-included, to like make that decision to start believing new things and start understanding what it looks like, and putting that into practice, right? So like yesterday, I don't know that I've ever experienced burnout because I don't know the clinical definition, right? But yesterday I did a photo shoot, which I don't know why it's so like draining to get your picture taken, but for some reason it is. like, why is it so tiring to get your picture taken? Literally all I did was stand there and laugh. But I was exhausted, and I had like 10 million other things that I needed to do when I got home, and I didn't want to do them. Like, I just didn't want to. But then there was also this guilt of laying on the couch being like, oh my God, I have 10 million things that I need to do. I have all these emails that I need to answer. I have all these people that are depending on me, etc. So, for me, I laid there and I didn't end up taking the nap because like everything in my head was so busy, right? Like my head was so busy. So I imagine that there's like a process that you have to move through, not just in one day, not just like you and me having this podcast chat now, but like over time, understanding how to set yourself up for success. Like, because you can't just jump into it one day and be like, oh, my business, I can be done by one, right? Like, you got to set up the right systems and processes and container for that so that you're not feeling guilty and exhausted and burned out. And, sometimes that looks different for different people, but I guess my question is around like, how can someone tell if they're ready for this or if they're feeling burned out? Like, how do I know if I'm burned out or if I'm just having a bad day?
So like burnout, I feel like you start to see it, like you start to see signs of it coming. And it is like if I think back, so I saw the physical signs of burnout, right? Like there's different types of burnout. There's total emotional burnout. There's mental burnout where like your brain's just fried. You can't take in more information. Like you're just like, I'm done. Like where you have the energy to do it, but you're just like, no, like it won't happen. Yeah. And there can be like a lot of signs. Like, so when I think about when I had like my physical burnout, right? There were signs for months that was going to happen. Like I had been having chronic pain again, like in my back, which I haven't had anything like that in a long, long, long time. I used to get migraines. I haven't had anything like that for a long time until then. I kept feeling like I had all these signs where I was like so tired all the time. Like, and that's not me at all, but I was pushing so hard. I was making myself work out extra, like because baby weight, I was like making myself be perfect mother. I was making myself travel. I was making myself like do the extra work at work. And I started to see a lot of signs. My weight dropped like crazy, like, and not in a good way. In a weird, like this is too much, especially with breastfeeding type of way. And so I feel like you'll start to see signs, especially like a lot of people who are, working and going through different types of burnout where it's almost like the rest of their life is starting to suffer. You see that, like your relationships start to mirror that happening for you. Like, I remember I was working so much, I hadn't seen my friends and like, it was like almost a year, no joke. Like I had like been cutting off relationships a lot because I was like, I don't have time. Like,
yeah. And you know what? It brings up something for me that I hear a lot, like, because I have a lot of, friends in my mastermind circles, et cetera, that I think are at this space where they've created this business. They a lot of them still like really love what they do, but they're exhausted. And some of the things that you were sharing, like remind me of specific people, even like things that they've shared, right? Like, you know, relationships suffering. And I had to have like a really big wake up call, like that needs to like always be a priority for me. And you have to be conscious and intentional with that. But like people complaining about like such silly things that they turn into a bigger deal because they're so focused and burned out and anxious about the business or the growth or what they're focused on, that they can't see that the fact that their husband didn't put the dishes away isn't the end of their marriage, you know, like, and those things start like creeping up, or, you know, now they're talking about divorce, and it's like, whoa, like, is this because you're so focused on the business, and you have no time, that now you're like resentful of the other people in your life? Or like because you haven't seen your friends in a year and you're annoyed that they're like asking you to go do things because you don't have time, right? Or you think you don't have time to do those things because you're not making the time, where you're so focused on the business or the job or whatever it is. And I've been there, like I've been that person that I was like, I don't have time to go, you know, watch that football game this weekend. And the truth is, we have the time. If it's a priority, we make the time, and those things slip away. You know, like, what are we creating? Like, what are we, you know, working towards if we're going to just allow all the other pieces of our life to kind of seep away, you know? And I see it all the time.
Yeah. Well, and we see, so I talk with a lot of mompreneurs especially, and a lot of them originally are like, they'll come to me saying, I need productivity tips, right? Like they want to be more productive with their time. And when we dig into the why behind everything, it's because they're starting to feel angry at people around them. They're starting to feel resentful of their kids. They're starting to feel, did I have kids at the right time in my life? Like, I mean, this gets into like deep shit where I'm like, you don't have to feel that way about these people. You don't have to feel this way about your husband. You don't have to feel this way about, I can't get married because it'll be time away, because I can't work on, you know what I mean? Like, I can't go on vacation with my family. I know they want to, but they don't get it. They don't get it, right? Like, and so it starts out with a lot of that productivity stuff, but a lot of the moms actually come to me because they're like, I don't want to feel this way about my kids anymore. Like, that's what really it is. Like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to be this parent, right? I don't want to be this spouse. So, I mean, it gets into really deep needs where they're like, I mean, I love my kids, but I don't want to be angry at them for being kids, you know what I mean? And wanting to be with me and stuff. And I don't want to be angry at myself because when I'm with them, I can't get my head out of my business. I'm like, that's part of being a business owner. Like, there's nothing to feel bad about there, because you can be as present as you want to be. But I mean, that's also a decision. You have to start kind of letting that in a little bit more. So, you know, for anyone that's kind of going through that, my advice is to like you were talking about, like, the things you make important are the things that will be important to you, that will take more priority. So one of like the weird things is that I'll tell people usually to block off time for yourself, block off family time. I know it sounds like you're just putting them in the schedule, but a lot of times that's where you have to start, right? Yeah. And then that time can become like you're like treasured, like, oh, this is my hour. No one gets to book a call here. Like, this is my time. Like, it's on my husband's calendar. He knows I'm going for a walk in the morning. Like, my husband and I do this where, like, you know, I could feel guilty about going for my morning walk, but he knows that I am a much happier woman later.
Yeah, I'm a better wife.
Yeah. And I've even said, I feel better in the afternoons taking care of Finn. I feel like a better mom. Like, I'm much more relaxed. I go do my walk and have my time first. And he's like, okay. So like, that's kind of my advice for anyone who's, you know, how do I just get started? Like, how do I just start? Like, block off like 2 hours a week, just start somewhere. And you can even like say, I'm going to do nothing during that time, but I have a feeling that a lot of the women listening to this are going to go, nothing? How do I do nothing? What? Like, so, you know, schedule something in that you're curious about or that you're interested in. Mm-hmm. I always think about like, what was I really interested in when I was a kid? Like, being outside. That's why I live in Colorado. Coloring, reading, writing stories, doing stuff like that. Like, so I'll sit there and I'll go, this is going to be my time to read a book. This my time to sit and watch a really scary show on Netflix because I believe in ghosts and they terrify the shit out of me. And it's almost Halloween, so that's what I'm going to do with that hour,
you know? Fun for you, yeah.
Yeah, so like, you know, kind of
that kid-like moment.
Yeah, or like with your kids, you can say like, well, what's something I would be excited about going and doing with them? That would be really fun, you know, because sometimes I think a lot of women say, well, if I'm just sitting at home playing with them, like, why shouldn't I have my phone with me and just check my emails too? And it's like, well, then you're not playing. So it's kind of, I always think about it like, you know, make it something unique for you. Like make it something that you don't do all the time and just kind of start there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's huge. And I often, I guess you forget what other people maybe don't know, or that is not like the norm for them, because it is the norm for me, to have like my non-negotiable time every morning. I go do my workout. I spend an hour even before my workout kind of with myself. And at first it really annoyed my fiance because I would get up really early and he doesn't want to get up early. And so the alarm goes off and I'm trying to figure out a way to like make it even quieter so that I like creep out of bed. But over time, he realized how important that time was for me to, you know, be a better human, right? And be less irritable and to make sure that I was at my best and feeling my best. And so he totally doesn't care anymore. He knows like, if I didn't get up early, I'm probably not going to be that happy later that day. And so he can like totally tell. And I think it's so true, like being communicative. Like I love that you tell your hubby, you know, hey, this is really important to me. And I think when we communicate that way, when we tell people how important it is to us to have that time to really connect with ourselves, to do what we need to do, to be the best version of ourselves in the rest of our life, then they are much more apt to receive that, you know, that from us when we're just like, I'm going to work out, like, or not telling them and then them wondering where you've been for the past hour. Like that doesn't work, you know, like you really have to be just as communicative about this as you are with your finances, you know, because pouring back into yourself is so important. And I think you're right. Like I forget that a lot of people don't do this. Like they're not even blocking out 2 hours a week. So like when you said 2 hours a week, I was like, I thought you were going to say 2 hours a day. Cause I was like, I already do my 1 hour at least per day. Right. But I could even be better at, you know, doing more of like the fun stuff. Like I love coloring and I want to like pull my coloring book out today after you said that. And, but also like having really good boundaries around that. And I think that's where it tends to fall short for people, right? So they put it on their calendar maybe, or maybe they don't, and they just say, oh, I'm going to do it. And I've actually had clients who tell me this, like, oh, I really want to work out, but I just don't have the time right now. And I'm like, if you don't have the time for like a 20-minute run, then we've got a problem like in your business, right? Like we have a major problem because there's nothing more important than you going to get that workout done, because you're going to be so much more, not even just present, but more productive, so that you're not, because what happens is I think, and maybe you can like add to this, but like, I think we end up working more hours because we're not really being productive during those hours. And if we were to just do the things that make us like our best self, like you have boundaries that you do not work after one most of the time, because number one, your son, right? Of course. But number two, you know that you're not a productive person after that time. So what's the point, right? Yeah. So how can people like figure out some of that stuff in terms of their physiology? Like, hey, I know that I'm not a super productive person in the morning. Well, then don't be a morning person, right? Like,
yeah, it totally makes sense. Well, I think like a lot of people like struggle with, like, you know, doing the workouts and stuff. And like, I always have to remember, like, it's so funny. Every time I share my morning walks, like I have times where I'm like, you know, I'm sharing this again, Allison, but then I have to remember, like, there are people that won't do it. Like they won't go for the walk, or they won't. And what it really is they won't value themselves enough to like make space for that. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think
everyone else is more important, right?
Yeah, well, everyone and everything, and they derive their value from all of the doing. Like they derive their value by achieving things. So going for a walk, like that's not. They're like that's not helping me achieve anything. Like
Not productive.
it's not going to build me income. So one of like the mindset things I work on with my clients is like, okay, you go for a walk, you book a discovery call. You go for a walk, you're more productive during the day. So going for a walk is not just self-care time; it is business building time. And they're like, well, like a lot of them are like that I can do. And so like we start there, right? Like just start, like I always tell people like press the easy button. Like
Yeah.
you press the easy button. So it doesn't have to be a walk where you're like meditating and like, you know what I mean? Don't make it such a stretch for you if you don't normally do those things, right? Like just make it easy. Go for your walk. You can think about business this week on your walk. Next week, when you start thinking about business on your walk, you're going to have to deflect a little bit and go, that's okay. Good. Take a note on my phone. I'll come back to it later. I bring my phone with me because a lot of times in the white space, we get good ideas, right? So I bring it with me, record the idea, and then I'm like, and back to Zen state. Like, it's just like, so I always tell them, like, just kind of start where you are. Like, this starts with little steps. Like, I'm not telling you to shut your brain off and, like, learn how to meditate tomorrow. Like, most people, especially like big, you know, doers and like high achievers like us, like we're on all the time. So we're like, what? Like my brain won't do that. So it kind of starts with like those little steps, like small integrations. And I think like you start to see the effects over time. So like the other thing that I do is, and this is something they talk about in 90 Day Year, they do the two week sprint, right? Where you're like then doing the review at the end of the 2 week sprints and going, how did I feel during this time? What was working during this time? What wasn't working? I do that every night. Like, I'm like, how did I feel at the end of the day?
Yeah.
What's different about today? Why don't I feel good today? Or, you know, why did I have stressful moments today? Was I afraid today? Like, did I default back to feeling good, or did it take me a while to get out of whatever funk was happening or whatever thing triggered me? So like a lot of that reflection can be really helpful for people, especially when they're first starting to build in, you know, some anti-burnout or play-based activities where they're like, I need to see results. Like, okay, well, what if a good enough result was you just feeling a little bit better at the end of the day? You know what I mean? Or you just feel like a little bit more clear as you were doing your work today. What if that was a good enough result? You know?
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, so true that when we create that space for ourselves, like we do come up with our best ideas, and instead of like trying to force it out while you're on a walk, just recording it and then moving on, right? So that you can like get it out of your head, but not like force yourself to not have business thoughts, because that probably feels not doable. Same thing with like meditation, right? You're not meant to be good, quote unquote, good at meditating, especially when you start. And what is meditating? It's just, you know, trying to sit quietly. It's not necessarily that you shouldn't have any thoughts, because that's not the intention of meditating. But you are going to have thoughts, but it's like, how quickly can you go back to the Zen state, right? So allowing the thoughts to come through and release versus hyper focusing, which is what we tend to do by default. And I think the point is, you're not going to be good at this at day one, so wean yourself onto it, right? Versus giving up. That's what's going to happen when people try to like jump in too quickly. They try to run the marathon when they haven't done the 5K yet, and they'll quit. So same thing with like going for a walk. You can do business while you're on that walk versus telling yourself like, no, I'm going to be meditating during this walk, right? And when you wean yourself onto these activities that feel a little more challenging for you, you're going to be more successful at them. You're going to start keeping them around, which is the whole point. But I can totally, you know, relate to needing that white space, as well as when we make space for the things that, you know, we really value and that we want more of in our life, whether that's more family, more work, more better relationships, more free time. Like when we do that, we do, I think, get better results because we're better humans and we're getting better ideas. And so it's kind of counterintuitive. Like you think, oh, I need to work more. But as I haven't worked anymore, right? And I keep getting better results. And it's really about I think, how you think about it.
Yeah. Well, and to like more to your point about the ideas part of it, like I get my best ideas when I am not
Sitting at
active.
your computer.
Yeah, like when I'm on my walks, like that's why I go out for my walk every morning. I have like my pretty pink notebook I bring, or like a blue one sometimes.
Yeah.
Phone, and then, you know, like I record things down as they come to me too, because like it's like, well, you're not gonna really shut off any part of your brain. Like at least like right now I think part of it's about like accepting where you are too, and just starting there. Like I accept that like I'm not the meditate all day person yet. Like I don't know if I will ever be that person, and right now I feel pretty good about the fact that I can go for a walk for 20 minutes and be like, I just downloaded like 18 ideas. Like now it's just how do I funnel them and figure out the right one. So like I think, you know, outside of even just exercising, like a lot of people think self-care has to be a day at the spa. It's got to be expensive. It's got to be a huge weekend away. It's got to be like, you know, like 18 hours of exercise a week or whatever it is. But it could be, you know, I went to see Les Mis with my husband the other night, or, you know, like that could be self-care. And like, think about like, I've been watching Chef's Table on Netflix, and I've been getting all sorts of crazy, like, and especially if you're the visionary in your business, right? Like this is important, like looking for inspiration outside of your industry. I've been getting all sorts of crazy like ideas based on that show, and some of the things that I've been seeing about leadership as far as chefs go and the way they lead differently and lead their teams. I mean, like you can find inspiration anywhere, but you have to actually give yourself permission to go
live a life.
Yeah, like read that novel, read that romance novel you've been jonesing for. Like, you know, go pick up that pretty journal. Go, like, I'm going to go up to Breckenridge by myself during Oktoberfest for a couple days and like hang out up there by myself and hike and stuff. And like, that's hard for me. I don't like spending time away from Fano, especially overnight for several nights, but like, I'm going to go do that because that's what I know I need to do in this phase of my business, is give myself a couple of days, especially as a parent. Like you gotta be okay with like stepping away every once in a while so you can come back full, right? So like, I think a lot of times, but it took me time. Finn's 2.5. It took me 2.5 years to be okay doing that, right? Yeah. So, I mean, give yourself like, you know, again, like reconnect to like what's missing that I really, really want. It could be, for some people it's spiritual, for some people it's curiosity things, for some people it's, I haven't read a good mystery in so long and that's what I really want. Or like, I haven't sat and like binged on a really good Netflix show. Like, I think we like demonize Netflix, but
I think people demonize TV, and I'm like, yeah. I used to be that person. I used to demonize TV. I'd be like, oh, I don't watch TV. That's for dumb people, right? Like we got things to do.
Yeah.
And now like a Netflix, I'm always like watching a Netflix series, and inside my group, you commented too. I wrote a post because I was like, I need more shows. Tell me what you're watching on Netflix. And I always watch, like, it's like my wind down thing for the evening. Like it makes me feel relaxed in the evening, and I kind of like getting into the storylines, and it does give me like cool ideas for business as well, but it just gives me, you know, number one, time with my fiance, and number two, like a way to end the day not working, you know, because it doesn't have, like, my life can be enjoyable too. And so we always demonize these things that are not, quote unquote, not productive or based in achievement. And I've been that person, so I totally get like the demonizing of it. But yeah. I mean, live your life, right? That's where the best content comes from, is when you actually do some living. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, I think like what I think a lot of my purpose, at least for right now, is to help people find like, to have a more joyful journey, like to have a little bit more ease and like elegance. And like, I think we think elegance a lot of times means money and certain dressing style, but I just think about it like we're gracefully going from thing to thing and enjoying our day. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's an elegant way of living in itself, you know, no matter how much money you have, and just like having more fun. Like I hear from so many people, like, I want to be the fun mom. I want to be the, like that mom that like, my mom works so hard. I want to be the one who plays with the kids all the time and stuff. And I'm like, well, are you doing that? Right. So it's like, we kind of like have to almost give ourselves a little bit of a boundary with work. And same thing too with like, you know, if you're going to have a really productive short schedule or short time frame like I do, I have to set boundaries with my family or with the nanny and stuff. Like this morning I was like, I'm going to do this interview with Adrian. Sound gets picked up from everything. We're in this old house. So can you guys go for an early walk today? Is that okay? And like, they were totally happy to do that with Finn. Yeah. Finn's like, I'll play outside all day if you let me. He's like, bye. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we just have to be willing to set the boundary what we need. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like, we have to be able to like tell ourselves like, this is okay to want this. Like, this is absolutely okay. And I'm going to be open to the fact that taking this time for myself or sitting down and coloring or whatever it is, like sitting and enjoying my coffee, doing nothing for an hour, like nothing, just like zoning out, like thinking, that could actually help me build my business. Like, I think if you frame it that way, like that helps like the doer woman, like feel like, oh, I can do this stuff. And then you start to realize that like, I'm going to do it just because I want to. Like, sometimes you have to start with like it could help me build my business, so therefore I'm going to do it. Like sometimes it's kind of like that backdoor way of getting in. Yeah. And like doing it piece by piece and allow it. I love that you said like, you know, allowing the enjoyment to like not be wrong, because I think for so many of us, that's what stops us. Like one of the things that when I became an entrepreneur, I could never watch the Today Show when I was in corporate. It's just like such a silly thing, but I loved like the news in like a fun way. You know, that's like how I picture the Today Show. It's like fun news to me. And I enjoyed watching it, but I could only really watch it on vacation days, really, right? When I was in corporate. And now as an entrepreneur, that was like one of my biggest treasures in the beginning, was being able to drink my coffee peacefully and watch a couple, you know, maybe 30 minutes of the Today Show. And it's such a silly thing that brought me so much enjoyment, and just allowing it to not be wrong, right? Like allowing it to, and a lot of people be like, you shouldn't watch the news, it's so negative. And I'm like, it's like pop culture news. I'm like, it's fine, right? Yeah. And if I want to be like in tune with the world, I'm going to choose the Today Show. And someday I'm going to be on the Today Show, and someone will be drinking their coffee, enjoying watching me on the Today Show too. But I think that so many times we make those things wrong. Like I just started taking Fridays, and I don't take calls on Fridays now. And part of me was like, how lazy am I, right? To not work on Fridays. And if I need to do work, I'll work. But if I don't want to, then I give myself that permission as well. And so much of what we talked about today is really giving yourself that permission and understanding that, yes, you need the productivity stuff, because you can't do this the way you're currently doing business, right? Like you can't get better results if you're not going to be more productive with the time that you have. So that's number one, which I know you can help people with. And then number two is like the mindset stuff around actually being able to say no to things and have real boundaries, and really having, giving yourself permission to want the life that you want and know what to do to actually get it, which most of that happens up in our heads. So I know that you have a free guide, the Freedom Guide. And for people, if they want access to that, they can go to adriandorison.com/freedom guide. Allie, tell everyone who that Freedom Guide is for and what they're gonna get when they open up that Freedom Guide. So this guide, I come back to it consistently in my business. It's one of the first things that I created. I've revamped it several times and added and taken things away and reframed things because it is so powerful. I think I don't know how many downloads I have of this thing at this point. But it's my most popular thing. And it's because anyone at any phase of business needs this. There's just awesome exercises in there that I personally use on myself. And now I don't have to go use the guide to use them because I default to really thinking about them consistently. But it's one of the first things I give a lot of my clients, even because it's that good. I give it to my paying clients as well. And it really will help you understand more about your own needs in as a person, right? Because a lot of like giving yourself permission to like take care of yourself is about self-acceptance and self-love. So it digs into a little bit of that. And then there's a lot of like little exercises about figuring out like, what's the one thing I'm going to give myself permission to delegate, to delete, to outsource, to systematize, to automate, like, and part of it is about, again, like coming back to self-love and stuff, like, why are you valuing the struggle, right? Like, again, so like a lot of this busy work and stuff and burnout comes from the fact that the American dream, you got to struggle to like gain it and then you can have it, and then you'll still probably be so attuned to struggling for it, you're going to keep working.
Right.
So like it really digs into some of that stuff, but there are a lot of really good productivity exercises as well for the business owner to help you start to actually invest your energy, which is really your most precious resource, not your money, not your time, just your energy, into the right things.
Yes, I love it. So this is going to be the thing that helps you actually start creating that freedom. Again, you can go to adriendorson.com/freedom guide. I will also put a link in the show notes to that. Allie, thank you so much for being here, for sharing, and just having like a really good conversation about the things that I think most of us as entrepreneurs are struggling with. So I know that a lot of people are going to need the freedom guide and they're going to get it. And if they want more access to you, how do they find you?
You can find me at adventureknox.com. That's my website.
Beautiful. We'll put a link in the show notes. Allie, thank you for being here, and we will see you all again next week.
Yeah, thank you.